Welcome back to Razmafzar TV. I'm having Usman back on our channel from London, Razmafzar, UK. Hi, Usman. How are you?
I'm brilliant. Thanks, doctor. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Good to have you back here on our channel. And Usman has been a very, very dedicated member and practitioner of Razmafzar. I really appreciate it. You did many videos, and among them were archery videos and bows, and you have shown your bows and archery techniques, which I really appreciate. Um, First of all, before we go ahead, why are you into archery? What it makes you interested in the skills of archery?
That's a great question, doctor. And the way I actually got involved in archery is quite interesting in itself. So, what drew me into archery was actually my horse riding, and what drew me into horse riding was actually my granddad. So, my granddad, when he was younger, he was a fantastic horse rider himself, and he was a huge enthusiast of the game of Buzkashi. And he used to always tell me about horse riding, but I was extremely young at the time. So it went through one ear and came up the other. But it was only until I got a bit older and my granddad passed away that I sort of thought to myself, what's the best way to really uphold his legacy? And then I started horse riding. And I think it was my second year into horse riding. I actually came across a YouTube video with the Hungarian master, Kasa Lajos. And he's a fantastic horseback archer. And I just remember watching the video and I immediately became absolutely fascinated at the skills he was using. And I sort of promised to myself that one day I'm going to get good enough at horse riding and archery to be able to compete within horseback archery. And really, ever since then, I've been practicing archery every day, whether that's through shooting at the archery range or shooting at the Torbo range or just doing Kapazi training. Archery has become something integral of my life. And every day I try to train within archery as well.
How long have you been training archery now?
I think now it's been about 3 to 4 years at least.
Very good.
Pretty much every single day as well.
Very good. And let us, before we go ahead, you talked about Buzkashi. Buzkashi, which is also as Boz in Persian means goat, and keshi comes from the verb keshi. That means to pull, means pulling the goat, actually, the translation. So what I know is that it is, or it is still practiced in Afghanistan, or at least it was practiced in Afghanistan. Today, you don't know what is now forbidden or not in Afghanistan, without getting into politics. But Bozkeshi, but I didn't know, was it also practiced, or is it practiced in Pakistan as well?
Yes, it's actually practiced in North Pakistan, in Peshawar. And it was really popular in the 90s. But yeah, as you mentioned, Doctor, the game has sort of diminished. There's not many players of the game today. There are still some tournaments held, but it's one of the sports which is slowly dying. But hopefully in the years to come that it sort of gets revived. I think that is slowly also happening as well. We're beginning to see.
Why is the sport dying? Is it because of animal protection rights, or what is
I think for a lot of people, especially outsiders, they look at the game and they just think to themselves it's completely barbaric. But it's only really the practitioners who actually understand that it's not just simply a barbaric game. There's a lot of skill to the game. There's a lot of discipline, and there's a lot of mastery involved to actually become good at the game of Buzkashi as well. So I think that is one of the reasons from outside perspective, it just seems barbaric. And also on top of that, within Afghanistan, Pakistan, there's a lot of politics going on as well, which is sort of resulting in the game dying down a bit.
Yeah, of course. That's also because I mean, I don't know, so I need to check on that. But I know, for example, the current rulers of Afghanistan, I'm not so sure what they have forbidden and what not. So I don't know. At least there, I don't know about Pakistan the state of affairs in Pakistan. But the thing regarding animal protection, right? The goat is dead. It's not that the goat is living.
That's what I don't understand.
Yeah. So it is not like the similar situation as many bullfighters in Spain have regarding bullfighting, because their bull is alive, but in Bozkeshi, it is not, the goat is not alive, right?
Yeah.
But even if there is an issue which is considered barbaric, I mean, the goat can be replaced with anything, in my opinion. It could be replaced by a sack of whatever, right? Right.
Doctor, I'll tell you something pretty remarkable. The game of Buzkashi, they actually say that the history came during the periods of Genghis Khan, where in between battles, Genghis Khan would actually use his troops to play this game to get discipline. And in fact, rather than using a goat, what they would apparently use was the defeated body of a general. So they would actually use a body of a general instead of the goat's carcass. So back then, it was certainly a lot more barbaric, you could say.
Yeah, I mean, okay, we cannot judge with our today's standards the practices of the past. It's like we in Japanese swordsmanship with tameshigiri. We know we do tameshigiri on tatami omote, but back then tameshigiri, well, everyone knows what was practiced on, right? Without going into details. Okay, so I mean, and Buzkashi teaches you horsemanship, riding a horse, and it also teaches you need wrestling skills for that.
Because Buzkashi is one of the very few games out there where there's actually very few written rules. So as a result, you'll see within the tournaments, people are whipping each other, people are wrestling each other on horseback. Everything goes. And in fact, one of the remarkable things about the game is that even if you have a broken limb, you fall off your horse, you're always expected to carry on and continue within the game. In fact, yeah. It's one of the very few games. It's not like football where if you get kicked, you're suddenly on the floor for half an hour crying. It really cultivates a sense of toughness, and all the players of Buzkashi are very, very tough men.
Yeah, they are very tough. I saw some of them. Actually, yes, they are very tough, man. Very tough, man. And is it like how do you know the rules? Or this, you know, how many players are each team or each side?
So usually the rules vary, but the way it's considered is that there's usually two teams, roughly it could be 10 to 12 players. Sometimes there's a lot more than that, and they're be comparable to football, where you've got two goals. You're essentially carrying the goat's carcass, and you have to put it in the other team's net within a certain time frame. And then once the game is over, it's about who gets as many goals.
Ah, okay. Very good. And then you know, something which is I hope I'm not going to just be insultive to some people, but how if you use a goat, that goat, and everyone is pulling, would it not fall apart?
So they actually, I believe, they do something to the carcass before to make sure that it's tough enough to last the whole match. And by the end of the match, the carcass is completely destroyed. Usually it's completely, it's in pieces usually at the end of the game. But they do something before to make sure that the carcass can last the whole game.
Okay, because I know there is now. I'm sure Hayden is going to like this because he asked me. I don't know some time ago. I just forgot to mention this story to him, which is not a story; it's a real case which they report on that. I think it was Shah Abbas, the Persian king, the first, who was sitting, and one of these European ambassadors or visitors was visiting him, and then he told him about crucible. He asked him about crucible steel. Pulad Gohardar. I said, it's very beautiful. Does it cut? And Shah Abbas, everyone knows, not all Safavid kings were, but he, like Shah Ismail, like Shah Tahmasp, they were really good swordsmen, not only archer. He said, yeah, you want to try? And he said, yeah, what do you want to say? So they brought a goat, right? That goat. And then he said, okay, cut it. And you know, that this is what we mean that with in game of tags. Many people play with the sword, but they don't realize that sometimes they have a fencing mind. I touched you, you touched me first, like this game, but they don't realize that cutting, even thrusting, but let's stick to cutting, it's not as easy as they think it is. Yeah. So then he hit the goat, and actually it hardly went through the hair and the fur, and a bit of cut to the skin. That goat, by the way. And Shah Abbas hits the goat, and with one strike, and it cuts through his crucible steel in two parts, right? Things like that, because when you said the goat, it all reminded me of this story of cutting of this, because it's a very tough skin, and also the fur and everything like that. Okay, and then regarding the horsemanship and riding, do you learn a certain style when you go riding, or what do you learn?
Yeah, so with Buzkashi, it's completely different to Western horse riding. Within Western horse riding, you're sort of told to uphold a good posture, to remain relaxed, and to very little use the reins. Whereas in Buzkashi, it's completely different because you're doing such sudden turns, you're doing such sudden accelerations. You really have to lean forward on your horse, and on top of that, you have to have a very tight control of the reins as well. And on top of that, because you have to factor in, you've got other people riding next to you who are potentially going to wrestle you off or going to whip you. You have to ride with one hand as well. You have to have one hand with your whip, one hand holding the reins. So it's in a very aggressive style of horse riding that takes years of mastery or years of practice to even be able to compete in a Buzkashi tournament.
Is it like you're allowed to put the goats on your horse, or should you carry it in your hand?
You can put it on top of your horse, but the problem with putting on Yeah, you can. I believe you can. But the problem with doing that is that people are going to try grabbing it from where you're resting it from. That's going to leave you very unstable on the horse.
That's true. It will.
Yeah.
It will definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. And regarding, let's go back. Let's go to archery. And what style of archery do you practice?
So I've been practicing thumb draw, and I'm one of the very few people who started off with thumb draw. A lot of people, when they start archery, they start off with Mediterranean draw and they sort of transition to thumb draw. But I started off from the get go with thumb release and thumb draw.
Have you ever tried the Mediterranean draw?
I've shot with Mediterranean a few times, but for me, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't have the same feeling as loosing an arrow with thumb release. And I think on top of that, for me personally, maybe that's because I'm not skilled enough with Mediterranean, but I like to use a lot of dynamic archery shots. So I like to move whilst I'm shooting. And for me, when I use Mediterranean, when I'm moving, it's very difficult to keep the arrow there.
Yes,
Whereas,
yes, it is.
whereas with your thumb draw, it locks it in place so you can move freely as well.
Yes, because I think one of the basic problems of okay for me as well, because even this Sasanian draw, we put it on this side of
Yeah,
the bow, right? So actually you hold it like that. So actually it's like thumb draw like that. The arrow is here, right? But in European or Mediterranean draw, when the arrow is on the other side, the whole game changes, right? Many people think it's only because of finger and thumb. I don't think it's only finger and thumb, in my humble opinion. It's also on which side of the bow you place the arrow, right? Right, I think so. That's
yeah,
another
yeah.
issue. Of
I think
course,
it
also
does.
the
Yeah,
shape. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, and this release, what you do, and thumb draw. Which type of thumb? Okay, which type of style do you use when you do that?
But when I like to shoot, I love using Buzkashi, the mustache draw. I think for me, when I use Buzkashi, I get the most consistency with my release. And I also like to use a hawk's claw grasp as well. I've seen a lot of the Razmafzar videos on that, so I've been incorporating that into my archery shooting. And whenever I use the historical methods, funny enough, I always get the best releases and all the best groupings. Whereas when I start using my own methods, I've seen that my consistency is not as good. So I think that's proving that the historical methods were truly the best.
Yes, I mean we know that, for example, as we know, we know that many. I mean, back then, before I started to translate Persian manuscripts on archery,
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, like in this Turkish archery or Arab archery, they also talked about this Persian style of borut kesh, or hawk's claw grip. And okay, if you stick to borut kesh, and when you go to miniatures, you see in miniatures most of them are in this borut kesh, right? But then you see it here, but then you see that some of them are in abru kesh or sorme kesh, right? And some of them are here, right? Then later on, I found that they also differentiate between rishkesh, which is bird draw, right? So here, and then abrukesh. And then the question is, they say that people in Isfahan preferred abrukesh.
Yeah.
But I fully agree with you. To me as well, although I have no problems doing with abrukesh, but to me at least, abrukesh, of course, if you are on a fortification, you want to shoot down. It is the way you shoot, right? You cannot do Buzkashi,
Yeah.
right? You need Abrukesh, of course.
Yeah.
So, but have you ever tried Abrukesh?
I have tried it. It's a lot different to bordered cash. I think with Abel cash I think also depends where the target is. I think if the target's a lot further back, then I think it's a lot easier
Yes.
to do that release as well. And I think I've also tried the chest draw.
Yes.
And I think one of the major strengths of the chest draw is particularly if you're on horseback. I think because when you're on horseback, it's hard to get an anchor point. So if you have the chest draw, you can consistently pull it back to your chest quite easily.
Easily, yes. Actually, one of the manuscripts say chest draw is for the best for horse archery. It says that, but we should never forget that every master or everyone who has a horse archery manuscript has his preferences.
Yeah.
Right. Let's take, for example, if everyone has a black belt in Kyokushin, one prefers this kick, one prefers that punch, and if I write, I say, oh, wheel kick is one of the best because I can do it very well. Right, but someone else who cannot do it very well would write front kick is the best. You understand? So clear. But then the thing is, the reason I said that, you see in Persian miniatures, many people are still shooting with borut kesh. Have you realized that? Some are with chest draw, some, but most again are in Borutkesh. Have you seen that?
Even like with the Mughal miniatures I've seen within the Pasha, the prevalent draw you always see is the Borot Kesh, the most popular one.
Ah, in Mughal, I mean, I'm not very familiar with Mughal miniatures. That's why I want to ask you. I know Persian miniatures, most of them,
Yeah.
but is in Mughal is the same, right? They also
Yeah.
okay, but do they show chest draw at all?
In fact, I don't think I've ever come across a Kesh, or maybe once in the Akbanama. I think I saw one miniature. But I think by far Borot Kesh seems to be the most popular draw. I've seen a few times where they've done to the beard. I've seen that quite a few times as well. But definitely the mustache draw is very popular. And I think modern practitioners of the mustache draw, I think they have a huge misconception. I think they believe that it's just simply drawing it to the tip of the mustache. Whereas I know, Doctor, you made a clarification where you said it's not just the mustache, it's in line to the ear.
Yes, you need to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it passes the mustache.
Yeah.
No matter what you do. And, I think this comes here and also with Abrukesh, you don't stop here, you go. That's the line. I think the reason maybe, okay, I'm not an expert Mediterranean draw, so take it with a pinch of salt. But I think, in discussions with Bede and what I've seen, they have this heavy bow, European bow, and when they do these, Mediterranean, they don't have this long draw as we do, right? They stop here, right? Have you seen them? The way they shoot, they stop so close because maybe their bows are too heavy or too large. I don't know. But I realized they don't go like we do or Japanese do or Koreans do. We always open. They don't open. Have you seen that?
I've seen that a lot. In fact, one of the remarkable things about these miniatures is that in pretty much every single archery miniature I've seen in the Persian and the Mughal miniatures, it's always a full draw where they always pull it all the way back. They're never just pulling it here and you can see the arrow always all the way back.
Also with Sasanian style. Also, when you go, have you seen Sasanian style also goes back, opens the chest. Everything is opened, right? Very good. And now let's go to also. Have you ever tried also with different types of grasping, like Bahrami grasp?
I have, yeah. I've tried the Bahrami. I find that very difficult though. I think, it's a very difficult grasp. I think it needs a lot of practice to get good at that one as well.
Yes, and there is another Bahrami grasp, which of course from Sasanian time, that's why Bahramikur. There is one here, but then have you seen sometimes in some, not all Sasanians, but when they grasp, they also open this finger. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
It's unbelievable, unbelievable. There are also, have you ever tried to shoot Sasanian style?
I haven't. That's the one style I haven't yet tried, but that's definitely I want to try that.
I think you can adapt easily. Because it's very similar to the thumb draw, but the way you just pull it, the way the device bead made is very nice because you rest here and you have two fingers to go, right? It's marvelous, marvelous. Marvelous. Not only the thumb, okay, thumb is very strong, but again, I have to say, and I have a strong hand, but at least the way I feel it when I use these two fingers, my two fingers are stronger than my thumb. I have to say it. Of course they are, right?
With the Sasanian draw, would you have to use a device or could you use it without the device?
No, you don't need the device. It makes it easier. I have to say, it makes it easier. For example, I know that Hayden doesn't like thumb rings. Hayden shoots without also very heavy bows. He has 80, 85. He just goes. And he wants not to get 120. But now he is going to listen to it and say, Hayden, get a thumb ring. I don't like thumb ring. 120 without a thumb ring. Oh, God. He is a tough guy, but still, right? Yeah, exactly. And I don't like it. I don't like it. Callus and all these things. Also here, I like this device. You can do it. But I think if the bow is strong, like 85, and we do it without these devices, I don't like it personally, because I personally think there was a reason for having these devices, and back then they used it because back then they did, as we also discussed with Bede, they all had 100, 120, sometimes 140 bows, right? I mean, there was not such a thing as 30 pound or 40 pound. I mean, no, these were not like that. Like someone I met, a very nice guy, was shooting. Oh, Manusha, I don't even know back then why they had thumb ring. So I said, yeah, because they didn't have a 25-pound bow as you have, right? That's the reason.
And I think something that's become really widespread within the archery world now is people just focusing mainly on speed. I think speed has just become something that everybody wants to do, but I think unfortunately as a result of that, people aren't shooting as heavy poundages as they were before because people just simply focus on speed and they're even trying to shortcut methods to get that speed as well. So
I mean, good that you mentioned that, and I hope I'm not going. At least I can share my own opinion on this, and as least also for not only for Razmafzar people or for fans, we have our channels growing and growing like crazy, it's exploding. But I need to say why I look the way I look at it, and I'm going to make comparisons. Many people, as historical archers, do not have any realistic martial arts background. Guys, do not get angry at me. I love all martial arts. For example, I go in from time to time. I mean, I mentioned before we started that I practice yoga. Yoga is not a martial art, but I also go and practice Tai Chi with a friend. She's a very good Tai Chi practitioner. I train it, but okay, I know that it's not a tough game as katas of Karate Kyokushin, which are all meant for fight, right? But the thing for me is the following. So I'm open to everything, but I need to say realistic martial arts is someone who fights you back, like boxing, like kickboxing, Muay Thai, Kyokushin, wrestling, BJJ, MMA. He doesn't stay there. He fights you back. So the thing is, and this is one thing we need to realize, and I'm also not interested in game of tags. Let's stick to kickboxing. I'm sure you know it, Usman. You do boxing, you do kickboxing, full contact. There is a game which is called semi-contact in kickboxing, which they hit each other very fast. Bah, bah. This is a nice game. This is a reaction game, but game, right? The thing is, I remember, okay, nowadays those days are gone. Everyone talks about MMA. For many, many semi-contact fighters, transferring to full contact was very difficult. The reason was, the full contact fighter, like in Kyokushin Muay Thai, we stay there and we wait. So this guy just comes and hits you here. Say, huh? So okay, kicks you here, he slaps you. Mostly when they kick you, it's like as if someone slaps you, like slapping. But okay, you're having a guard. You're not opening like that, so because even a slap here hurts. But then he does many points, and all of a sudden you do one low kick and he goes down. He doesn't come up anymore. So the thing is, because they learned speed is important, but speed is not important, because important is how much damage you cause. Right? You can hit me 20 times fast speed, and I can punch you once. And if my punch is strong, all those 20 you gave me, you know that, Usman. In European boxing, it's not practiced that much. In American style boxing is. You know that Americans are ready to take a punch, then hit back. This American style. This American style. Exactly. You know that Europeans are not like that mostly, but Americans prefer to take a punch than hit hard, right? So we know that, right? So then the thing is, for me, is even with the weapon, I'm not interested in game of tags. The reason is cutting is difficult. Even trusting is difficult. People always think someone is in a t-shirt fighting you. Have a gambeson, get any sword you want, try to trust through a real multi-layered gambeson. Then I will see what happens. Cutting, forget about that. Just try to trust. So you see things change, Osman, right? And now with archery is no different. People come, they're looking for openings as if the guy waits. Oh, please. Oh, yes. Shoot me in the opening here. He's rushing at you, right? You understand? So all these games of archery, I go to archery competition, and they have this 30 pound, and then they shoot fast. Oh, I killed him. No, you killed nothing. What did you kill? You see, it reminds me of semi-contact. It reminds me of all those games, or it reminds me of these fencing games, which I hit you first, you hit, I won the game. Because I think we need to realize that, like in Safavid era, they had heavy bows and heavy arrows, or like in Sassanian is the same. Shoot once, shoot a powerful shot, right? You don't need to just keep. No, I'm not interested in that. To be honest, it doesn't impress me, and I don't want my Razmafzar guys to do that. I'm not interested in Razmafzar guy come with 25 poundage or 30 and go. It doesn't impress me. Yeah. It's like someone comes and does semi contact and does this like that. Does it impress me as a fighter? It doesn't impress me, right? Yeah. The same thing. Or like, Usman, if I want to make a comparison with that, that you do boxing, you do Muay Thai, you need muscles to generate power. Because why? Because we are human beings. Without muscles, how can you generate power? So if you are not sportive, how can you generate power? Yeah. Very simple. And for that reason, I'm also not interested in these archery tricks. I'm not interested in it. Because, these fast shootings, Osman, you don't need to go to 100, 120 pounds. Just I ask you a question. You're an archer. Those fast shooting, can you do it with 80 pounds like that? The way they do? 80. You don't need 100, 120. 80. No. They cannot even do it with 60. Right? And most of them are not even sportive people. You see that here. They have no muscles, nothing. Right? Where should they generate power to do that, right? Very simple. And I'm not very interested in these type of games. I fully agree with you. I want, for example, later on for Razmafzar or my people to have clear shots, strong shots. That's it. I'm not interested in speed. Please.
Yeah, it's like, as you mentioned, in Persian warfare as well, they would make sure that their arrows were heavy because every arrow counted. And on the battlefield, if you just simply shoot an arrow and it misses, it wasn't good enough because, as you mentioned, timing was so important. And that's why I think it is really important that rather than people just sacrificing their form, their speed or their technique for speed, it's important to make sure that you take your time and you make sure that every arrow hits, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And also we have these new experiments colleagues did in European research. They realized, in contrast to what many people thought, penetrating plate armor is not the way they thought it was. They couldn't, there are many of them on YouTube, they couldn't. With the heaviest longbow, they couldn't. It's not as easy as many people think it was. Not as easy. So long shots, really good one, really powerful one. That's what it counts. Absolutely. So, and now when you want to practice riding or horsemanship with archery, have you ever tried that? Have you mixed the two?
So that's the one thing I haven't tried, but in the future, I'm definitely going to try that. I think with doing horseback archery, you have to have great horse riding skills and you have to have, of course, good archery skills as well. And I think the most important skill in doing horseback archery is the riding. You have to have really good riding skill because you have to be able to essentially be able to control yourself on the horse so that you can maintain your balance and also shoot at the same time. And I remember listening to some, I think it was a very famous archer, Alperen Alkan, a Turkish archer, and he said that somebody asked him, would you rather have somebody who's got 5 years of riding experience, or would you rather have somebody with 5 years of archery experience learning horseback archery for the first time? And he said riding experience. So I definitely think riding is the most important thing when learning horseback archery. But definitely in the future, Doctor, I'm going to hopefully try horseback archery and be able to compete in competitions as well. That's my main goal.
Perfect. Competing in competitions. Are there many competitions at the moment going on in this field?
I believe there are quite a few competitions. I think horseback archery in itself has been on the rise for the last, 5 to 10 years. I think due to a lot of Turkish TV series, horseback archery has become really popular. And I believe there are some really big competitions, especially within Turkey and Hungary as well.
Okay. Yeah. Is it big now in Turkey on the TV? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's really popular there.
Okay. Yeah. Like TV, like documentaries, or is it like in the movie series?
No, I think it's more of a drama series called Ertugrul. And this has become massive in Turkey and even in the West as well. And now, in a way, it's good because a lot of people are getting involved in historical martial arts. So that's definitely a good thing because these sports and these disciplines are increasing in number as well, which is great.
Have you tried shooting different types of arrowheads?
I have, in fact, with me. So this one here is actually a broadhead for hunting. Yes. I've used it a few times, but the problem with this is that it completely destroys the target. So it's not the best for using on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
I've shot a lot with whistling heads before as well.
Yes.
And other than that, the main sort of arrowhead I use is just a normal bodkin head.
Okay.
Yeah.
I used to, I mean, okay, not anymore. Now I have straws to shoot that.
Yeah.
But I had a very nice target, all we have.
Yeah.
And one day I said, okay, I'm going to shoot at it. So I did with a crescent-shaped arrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I tell you what it did to my target,
Yeah. Yeah.
such a hole inside my target. And when I pulled it out, the whole damn thing came out with that.
Yeah. Oh my God.
My target was gone. So
Yeah. Yeah.
she cannot
And I
do
think
it.
that's the problem with using wooden arrows as well, is that wooden arrows are so easy to break.
Yeah, very easy.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you use for this? What do you use for shafts?
So I say the shafts I use most often is actually carbon. I've actually got some here. The ones I use the most often. These are carbon arrows,
Yeah.
and they're excellently made. So I think the thing with carbon arrows is that they're so consistent with the spine and just the weight of the arrows. Whereas with wooden arrows, it depends on the humidity,
Yes,
depends
yes.
on sort of wood you're using as well. So I think carbon is my.
Closer, please. Can you show it in closer? Can I bring it? Why does it look like wood?
I think it's just the aesthetic. It
Okay.
looks like wood, but it's actually carbon.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Yes. Yeah. And so you use it because of consistency, right?
Consistency, yeah, that's the main reason. Whereas with a wooden arrow, which I have quite a few of, but they're just not as consistent with the
Yes.
carbon arrows, and also these break a lot easier as well.
Yes. They do.
Yeah.
They. Yes. Have you tried arrows made of reed or of cane or bamboo?
I haven't, but I've heard bamboo arrows are meant to be really heavy. But I haven't yet used bamboo arrows, but I
Yeah.
think they would be good arrows to use maybe for if you're practicing. I think there's a Japanese form of archery.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be really good to use bamboo because bamboo is it's a really long arrow usually. Yeah.
Persians and Indians mostly used reed, right?
Yeah.
Yes, those Asian reed because they're
Yeah.
very stable,
Yeah.
very stable. So they use this, right?
Yeah.
This is also a possibility. A possibility. Do you make your arrows also yourself? Do you buy them? What do you do, Usman?
I actually buy them, but I've got a few good friends who actually make their own arrows. And I think the brilliant thing about archery is that a lot of people get involved in archery, a sort of sense of craftsmanship you immediately get from archery. I know people who had some terrible craftsmanship skills before, but they began archery and now they make their own arrows, they make their own quivers. But I don't actually make my own arrows, but that would definitely save me a lot of money if I did.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
of course. Is it like that you have mostly Botkin arrows, Botkin arrowheads?
Yeah, yeah, majority of my body.
Can you show us some of them, please?
Yeah. So in fact, the majority of the arrows I have here, Doctor, I actually don't have
Okay.
like this.
Oh,
Because I've lost so many of my arrowheads, Doctor, I find it hard to find all the ones which are broken heads.
no problem. Okay. What else in archery interests you? Can you tell us more about that? From Mughal India, do you know any archery tales you want to share with us?
Yeah, so Mughal India has some of the most fascinating archery miniatures you can ever see. And I think what really fascinates me about Mughal India is the evolution of the bow. I think I mentioned this last episode as well, how the Mughal bow changed so much during the course of the empire. Very early on, you had the Indo-Persian bow, which was really prevalent throughout the empire. And then later on, you get the Mughal crab bow. And the Mughal crab bow is a very interesting bow, and it's notoriously difficult to use as well. But it's still one of my favorite bows. I think one of the great things about the Mughal crab bow is that it packs a punch. When you draw it, you can just immediately feel the arrow snap when you release the bow. So that's one of my favorite bows out there. And yeah, just the evolution of the bow is fascinating within Mughal India.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
And you said that you practice archery every day.
Yeah.
How often? For how long?
Yeah, so usually it depends really. Sometimes I try to get about 50 arrows in. But sometimes I even just do Kapasi training where I'm just simply pulling back the bowstring as well. I think Kapasi training really helps to maintain consistency because you can really pull it back and be able to achieve consistency in where you're going to. So when you actually shoot, it's a lot easier to actually shoot because you're so used to pulling it back.
Practice for our viewers what it means.
Yep. So Kapasi practice actually. In fact, let me bring my bow. I think I'll make it. So Kapasi practice is actually common in the Ottoman Empire as well. And what it actually involves is simply drawing the bow back to where you would release and just holding it there. You can usually hold it there for 10 to 20 seconds. And what it does is it helps you when you actually begin to shoot an arrow, because you've done this so many times. Not only does it help you develop the muscles in your arms, but likewise, it just becomes second nature for when you're actually out in the range shooting as well.
Okay, that's it. And how often do you do that? Do you practice that?
Yeah, I practice that. I say every other day. Usually I try to get out into the range. I'm very lucky that I've got an archery range near where I live as well.
Oh, okay, okay, good. I wanted to ask you. And do you also shoot from both sides, archery?
Yeah, I think that's really important to be able to shoot on both sides as well. And I think there was I'm trying to think where I heard this from, but they say that shooting from both sides would actually could be the difference between life and death on the battlefield. Because if you're an horseback archer and you had an enemy on the other side and you simply could not shoot, you'd pretty much be dead. So you'd have to be able to switch bow hands and be able to loose an arrow as well. So I think being able to shoot from both sides is really important with an archery, and it's something that I try to do as well.
You know what it reminds me of? There was a guy who was claiming, yeah, okay, you shoot this side, but if you want to shoot that side, you just come and pull and do like this. And I say, what about just changing the hand instead of these crazy moves? You just change the hand and shoot from the other side, right? Of course, it is possible. It is possible. It is also, we talked about it already, Usman. It is also in swordsmanship. We do not believe in only one hand. We need to be ambidextrous. Why? Because if you have two shamshir, how do you want to do that? Right? You can't do that. You need to be ambidextrous, of course. We talked about it already. And you told me as well that you are going to do Novak as well, arrow guide soon, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I want to try. I think with the Novak, what makes it so interesting is I could just imagine the amount of velocity or power you're going to get with the arrow because you're overdrawing the arrow as well. So I definitely want to try that out.
When I shoot a Novak and those, when you shoot those short arrows, right? You shoot them and it goes so fast, you feel like burned wood.
Wow. Yeah.
Seriously, you smell it.
Yeah. Incredible.
So, yeah. Then you look at it, nothing is burned, but you know the smell of burned wood?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you smell. It's that, and then the punch it gives to this short arrow is amazing, amazing. Do you also like sipar, the Ottoman sipar?
Yeah, the Ottoman sipar. Yeah. The shield, do you mean?
Yes. That you put it here, right? You put it here, and then you can shoot.
Oh, okay, yeah, the sipars. Yeah, the sipar. Yeah, that's very similar, right, to the Novak?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you can also use short arrows instead of having a Novak. You put it here. Of course, the Novak increases the velocity somehow because it has like this, but then they're on your hands, right?
Yeah.
But we have another variety. Bead is going to make it for me is Novak Qabze, where the Novak arrow guide is not attached to your hand, is attached to the bow grip.
Okay, wow. That'd be very interesting. Yeah.
That's better. That's safer than here.
Because I could imagine.
Talks about that. They talk about Novak Qabze. It looks like sipar, but it is attached to the handle. Then you don't have these problems that put the arrow always here. You can always put the arrow there and shoot. And it doesn't matter if it's long or short. You can always use everything. Even your long arrows, you can put it there. Instead of putting on your hand, you can put it there.
Yeah, that would be really effective.
Yeah. Then you don't need to worry if you're used to it. You need to get used to it. You should worry. But the grasping, becomes secondary if you have that.
Yeah.
Right, these type of things we can discuss that. And okay, and then so you shoot these archery. Do you do any strength training for archery as well, Usman?
One of the ways I was actually able to manage my Persian meals I incorporated Persian meals into my daily routine. In fact, whenever I wake up, the very first thing I do is I do Persian meal training.
Yes.
And one of the things I immediately recognized was that not only did it help improve my shoulders for archery, but I also used to have rotator cuff issues with my boxing. And ever since I've started doing Persian meals, doctor, I haven't had that same issue, which I had for so many years in boxing, and it just completely vanished from doing it consistently for about 6 months. So the Persian meals really work wonders in terms of your shoulder strength as well. And one of the things I definitely want to try is the steel bow, the one in Persia. Kabade. Yeah, that's definitely something that I want to try as well.
Persian sources say it's the best thing for archery.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, when we go up here and there, and these are heavy. My God, they're heavy, right?
Yeah.
But okay, there are different weights, of course. It doesn't make sense to have very heavy because, I'm not a big fan of big weights. You know that. Also, meals don't need to weigh so much. They're going to ruin your shoulder. You should always lift things that you feel comfortable with. You don't feel. I'm not a big fan. Many people say, "Oh, how do you get your strength? You have muscles." I'm not a big fan of big weights. Big weights mean nothing. They're going only to destroy your body, in my opinion. Smaller weights, but consistent training. I really believe in it. Absolutely.
See it within boxing. A lot of heavyweight as a result of that, stiff. And the problem with being too stiff is that you become robotic, which is terrible when you're trying to throw a punch because you're too slow. Whereas if you do light weights and you do a lot of them, you build up a certain set of endurance and you're a lot quicker as well, which is really important.
Yes. You sure in boxing, if you get stiff, they knock you out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Of course, you get knocked. You're big and usually get knocked out.
Yeah. In fact, doctor, I've seen so many big bodybuilders actually come to the boxing gym and they completely leave with their ego tarnished because they go into the gym thinking they're going to be able to just bulldoze their way through, but then they quickly realize that having big muscles without having the speed within your muscles is useless within sports such as boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, etc.
Yes, and it won't even help them in wrestling. In contrast to what many people think, it doesn't help them in wrestling. Those huge muscles, they impede them actually in wrestling as well. Because in any type of fight, we need different types of muscles, not those here. Not that I'm saying bodybuilding is bad, but bodybuilding is a different sport. You need to develop muscles to look beautiful, to look powerful. I have respect for those guys. Because many people say, "Oh yeah," because you cannot define everything in fighting terms, right?
Yeah.
Of course, but they have a different, and they don't claim to be fighters, right?
Yeah.
The thing is that they don't call themselves a martial arts, right? So they have a different goal, of course. But I fully agree with you. This is not the case, which it should be. And then there are also, we read in manuscripts as well. And then there were also they used to shoot also from arrows or archery practice on top of an elephant, right?
I've seen so many miniatures with it. That must have been incredibly challenging because you can imagine how the size of an elephant, first of all, is staggering. So to achieve balance on that would be so hard. And on top of that, elephants are known to be extremely unpredictable. That's another aspect where you have to be able to realize that if the elephant suddenly goes out of control, you have to be able to control the elephant and still be able to loose arrows from them on top. It's incredibly challenging, I can imagine.
Now, just one question. Maybe you know that. Are the elephants in Pakistan as well, or only in India?
There are. That's a good question, doctor. I think there must be some elephants in Pakistan. I think there would be some, but I think the majority of them are in India. In India, there are a lot of elephants.
Okay. Because in today's Iran, there are not anymore. In the past, they were, sadly.
Yeah.
They are not anymore. So that's the reason I ask, right? In Mughal miniatures, do they also show archery from other animals as well, on top of other animals?
I think predominantly it's mainly elephants and horses from what I've seen.
Yes.
But they did also utilize camels as well. I haven't seen any miniatures with them shooting on top of camels, but I know they use them in warfare. For example, I think there's one really famous battle, the Battle of Panipat, where Zahruddin Muhammad Babur, he actually put cannons in between the camels.
Yes.
And even Amir Timur or Tamerlane, known in the West, he done something similar when during the Battle of Delhi. I think he actually put burning wood on top of the camels, so they ran screaming towards the elephants on the enemy side, and the elephants they saw these camels screaming at them, and they suddenly became startled, and they started running into their own flanks as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Persian, also because you ask about Nader Shah, they put it as zamburak, swifle guns, the small cannons. There's the so-called swifle guns in Western military terminology. They put it on the camels. They shot those cannons on top of camels. That's what Nader Shah used it as well. So there was a mobile artillery.
Mobile, modern day tank.
This is unbelievable. He said, back there. I always ask myself, something, because you also do horsemanship riding. I always ask myself, how did they train those animals back then that they could go to battle? This is a question which I always ask myself. How did they do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, even I sometimes wonder how they got these massive elephants to be able to listen to them. But they say one of the methods they'd actually do is a lot of the time, they'd actually give the elephants alcohol.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they gave the elephants alcohol. So that sort of numbed down I wouldn't say numb their nerves, but sometimes it made them crazy as well. So they go into the battlefield crazy, these elephants. But that's one of the methods they used.
Do you know, Usman, where I realized the power of an elephant? Okay, if you don't, I did a bit of horse riding, when I was in Mongolia, also here with Petra in Germany. So, I mean, I did a bit of horse riding, but so you realize when you ride a horse how strong a horse is. And basically, we human beings are so weak, right? A chimpanzee can kill us, right? You don't need to talk about, horse. But I remember, I think maybe we talked about it once, but I remember there is on YouTube, you can see it, there is in India an elephant. So we are talking about an Asian elephant, not an African elephant, which is much bigger and stronger. I don't know what happened to this elephant. Sometimes they go crazy, right? But this elephant went crazy, and the guy on top tried to control. Poor guy couldn't. This guy went to cars, I don't know, he was going somewhere, but just went to the street. Believe me, it picked up cars with 4 people or more inside, threw them. You can watch it in YouTube. 4 meters, 5 meters into the air, one after the other. And when it's very sad, because I don't know how many people got killed. I don't know. I'm sure. I mean, when you are thrown like that, or got injured, severely injured, I don't know what it. So the police, I think, put it down later. But what I asking myself was the following, Usman. I asked myself, it was like one of those movies, like Lord of the Rings. When I watched that, then I realized, my God, these animals are stronger than I thought. If you can pick up a car and throw it, this is unbelievable. Right? Unbelievable. That video really opened my eyes to understand what an elephant can do. Unbelievable. Have you seen that? Also, there is, I think, in Italy, what's the name of this museum? They have a Mughal elephant armor, complete elephant armor. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have. And even in the Leeds Armory as well, they've got a magnificent display of elephant armor as well. And I think elephants were an integral part of the Mughal military. So it really is fascinating. I think it was the Delhi Sultanate. They were the very first people, well, not the very first, but they were one of the ones who made the use of the elephant very popular within military systems. And the Mughals, they sort of continued that as well. And they even held more elephant fights within the court, well, not within the courts, but within some of the royal places as well, where they would actually see elephants fighting with each other. And in fact, they would have skilled riders who were just designated roles where they would have to ride on top of the elephants whilst the elephants are fighting each other as well.
Yes. Have you ever tried to ride an elephant?
I haven't, no.
I'm just
I would love to, but I can imagine that would be terrifying.
Would be, right? And of course, with someone who knows how to control the animal, right?
Yeah. Because I've ridden some very fierce horses, and even at times that can be really challenging because you have to assert your dominance. Horses are incredibly clever animals. They can notice some of for example, if you show a horse weakness, they will immediately pick that up. And of course, with an elephant, it will be very hard to sort of show your dominance or show your confidence as well, riding on top of an elephant. So I can imagine that would be a completely different ballgame.
Could you explain what you mean to show dominance to a horse? How do they feel it? Means
So
if you feel
yeah,
them.
yeah. So horses are some of the most clever animals. In fact, I remember when I first started horse riding, I had a very stubborn horse who immediately recognized that I was a complete newbie in horse riding. And what it would actually do is, whilst I was riding it, it would take shortcuts around the track. It wouldn't completely ride around the track, or sometimes it would just completely sit down and not let me ride it. So one of the things about horse riding is you have to be able to sometimes show the horse that you're the one in charge. Whether that means giving it a good old kick or whether pulling it the reins a bit, the horse needs to realize that you're the person in charge. And when they actually realize that you're the person in charge, they listen attentively to the commands as well.
That's the reason. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Osman, at the end, do you want to add anything to our discussion of today?
It's brilliant speaking with you, Doctor. And all I would say is to all the viewers out there, there is so much magnificent archery content on the Razmafzar channel. So I would say definitely to all the viewers, check out all the fantastic content and leave likes and please subscribe as well.
Thank you very much, Osman. I wish you a
Thank
nice
you,
day. Thank
you
you. As Usman mentioned in the interview, I want to show you his grandfather's traditional hat, which he would wear during games of Buzkashi, or as we say in Persian, Buzkashi. It was passed down to Usman, and he wears it. It is incredibly warm and made out of animal fur.